noroeste de Sudamérica. Es el único país sudamericano, posee costas en ambos océanos, en 1800 millas de Nueva York. De modo que San Francisco, California, se halla más lejos de Nueva York que Bogotá, la capital de Colombia. Este país era de una antigua civilización. Muchísimos años antes de ser descubierto por los españoles, centenares de estatuas han sido descubiertas recientemente en las montañas al sudeste de Popayán. Colombia es una nación de una riqueza potencial apenas explotada. Tiene vastos yacimientos auríferos y fuerza hidráulica ilimitada. Tiene selvas de plantas medicinales, caucho, maderas tropicales y verdaderos lagos subterráneos de petróleo. Colombia posee extensos litorales, tanto a lo largo del Mar Caribe como a lo largo del Océano Pacífico. Hay puertos importantes en ambas costas. En el Pacífico se encuentra Buenaventura y en el Caribe Barranquilla y Cartagena. Esta histórica ciudad está situada en una hermosa bahía. Fue fundada hace más de 400 años, en 1553, y era el principal baluarte de España en Sudamérica. Por eso Cartagena fue rodeada de fortificaciones. Era conocida como nombre de la perla de las Indias occidentales y era la clave estratégica de toda la América del Sur. Sus murallas en ciertos lugares estratégicos alcanzaban a 40 pies de grueso y 60 de altura. Desde esta plaza fuerte colonial se embarcaban cargamentos de oro y esmeraldas para los reyes de España. Hoy día se halla en Cartagena una moderna academia naval. Entre la cordillera oriental y la central de los Andes fluye el caudaloso río Magdalena. Es la gran arteria comercial de Colombia. Los exploradores españoles navegaron río arriba por el Magdalena, que atraviesa casi todo el país. Hay unos 30 puertos fluviales en su tramo navegable de más de 800 millas. En el anchuroso valle del Magdalena, lo mismo que en otras regiones del país, existen vastos yacimientos de petróleo. El petróleo ocupa el segundo lugar en artículos de exportación. Para la conducción de petróleo a la costa del Atlántico se emplean oleoductos de 350 millas de longitud. Bogotá, la capital de Colombia, fue fundada en 1538 por el conquistador español Jiménez de Quesada. Simón Bolívar fue el primer presidente de Colombia. En este edificio se reúne el Congreso de la Nación, que se declaró libre e independiente de España y se constituyó en república el año de 1819. La Universidad Nacional está en Bogotá, ciudad de 500.000 de habitantes, centro intelectual de la nación. Su altura sobre el nivel del mar alcanza a más de 8.600 pies. A esta estimulante altura se debe en parte la energía de los bogotanos. Y a pesar de ella, saben expansionarse y disfrutar de la vida al aire libre en sus muchos parques, y la vida de sus bellos hogares es de un ritmo más reposado y tranquilo que el nuestro. Entre la cordillera occidental y la central de los Andes fluye el río Cauca. Cali, puerta de entrada al Pacífico, es la ciudad principal de esta fértil región y el Valle del Cauca sigue en importancia al Valle del Magdalena. En el Valle del Cauca se cosecha la caña de azúcar todos los días del año y de allí se acarrea a los ingenios de azúcar para molerla y obtener el azúcar para el mercado. En la serena atmósfera del Valle del Cauca es donde Jorge Isaacs se inspiró para escribir su famosa novela romántica María. Al norte de Cali se halla la ciudad de Medellín, capital de uno de los 16 departamentos de Colombia. Producto de este departamento es el café, su artículo de exportación más importante. Colombia produce gran parte del café más fino y suave del mundo. Se recoge a mano el fruto rojo o cereza de café y se echa en un depósito de agua. El fruto de calidad superior se hunde en el agua y el inferior se mantiene a flote. Mecánicamente se elimina la corteza y los granos de café son lavados en una corriente de agua limpia que los conduce por una serie de canales. Finalmente, se echan a secar al sol. Son meneados muy despacio para que se sequen perfectamente. Una vez seco, se empaca el café en tales o sacos que se transportan a los puertos, tales como Buenaventura y Barranquilla, donde se embarca para los diversos mercados del mundo. En las zonas tropicales de Colombia hay gran variedad de aves de colorido plumaje, pero todavía más vistosas son las orquídeas. La orquídea es la flor nacional de Colombia. Aunque este país es riquísimo, mayormente en productos minerales y agrícolas, ya van desarrollándose las industrias. La fabricación de tejidos desempeña un papel importante en la economía nacional. De suma importancia en esta economía ha sido la aviación comercial que ha conquistado valles y montañas, las diversas áreas del país que antes permanecían aisladas. Van apareciendo más y más casas nuevas y edificios modernísimos, pero se conservan con esmero los tesoros arquitectónicos de épocas anteriores. La vida es, por lo general, bastante amena en la República de Colombia. Sus enormes riquezas naturales atraen al minero, al industrial y al hombre de ciencia. Es un país de halagüeño porvenir y de gente hospitalaria simpática.
Hi, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks lunchtime streaming show where we watch old 16mm films. And yes, I misspelled Colombia. I tried to fix it kind of late in the game. But yeah, that was from a fellow collector. It was made by International Film Bureau. And it was Spanish. And so it looks like it It might have been made for the Inter-Americas. There were a lot of films because of funding that was federal funding, where they were trying to educate these other countries about different things. Disney actually did a series of films about that. One was called Insects as Carriers of Disease, Winged Scourge. There was one called The Human Body, and it was basically designed to educate poor Latin American people about health issues, and specifically related to insects that were caught spreading disease and ways to change hygiene so you wouldn't get typhoid or worse. So that could be what that was related to. I'm guessing. I'm really just kind of winging it here. Not quite sure. All right. This next film features our good old friend, whose name I just immediately forgot, James Brill. James Brill is going to talk to us about the theory of flight. Enjoy.
The pilot who flies an airplane is directing the motions of an inanimate body, motions which first cause the plane to move forward with ever-increasing speed, then to rise into the air, and to maneuver in various ways. These motions and the forces involved can be explained in terms of well-established physical laws. In order to set any object in motion, a force is necessary. Once started, it can be speeded up only through a force. A force is necessary to change its direction, to slow it down, and to stop it. Object, when there is no unbalanced force acting upon it, continues at a constant speed in a straight line. Forces always occur in equal and oppositely directed pairs. Thus, the drive wheels of the locomotive exert a backward frictional force on the track, and the track exerts an equal forward force on the wheels, as the locomotive starts forward under its own power. In this free track model, the force of the wheels causes the track to move backward, and its equal opposite force causes the locomotive to go forward. A forward force is necessary to start an airplane moving forward. The propeller exerts a backward force upon a mass of air, and the air exerts a forward force, called thrust, upon the propeller, causing the plane to move. In order to fly, it must have an upward force, the force of air upon the wings. To study the force of air on wings, we resort to experiments in a wind tunnel. It is in wind tunnels that most problems of aerodynamics as applied to airplanes have been worked out. This is a diagram of a wind tunnel. Air is blown over a plate or airfoil. The plate is attached to a vertical spindle, which is balanced on a fixed pivot. The airstream exerts force on the airfoil. The force exerted parallel to the airstream is called drag. This force is balanced by weights in a pan, which thus measures the drag. The force exerted on the plate perpendicular to the airstream, called lift, is balanced by weights in another pan, which measures the lift. In this wind tunnel, we first use a stationary flat plate as the airfoil. A horizontal stream containing smoke will be forced past it. When we inject smoke into the airstream with the plate horizontal, the motion of the air is essentially unchanged, and there is practically no force acting on the plate. When we incline the plate, thereby giving it an angle of attack, lift and drag forces operate on the plate, and equal and opposite forces act on the air, changing its direction of flow. As we double the speed of the airstream, the lift and drag become 4 times as great as before, as indicated by the arrows. Such measurements as these show that the lift on the plate is proportional to the square of the speed of the airstream. and so too the drag. Above the flat plate and on the edge, there is considerable turbulence, resulting in an unfavorable ratio between lift and drag. By substituting a thicker airfoil with curved or cambered surfaces, turbulence is diminished and ratio of lift to drag increases, thus increasing the efficiency of the airfoil. As the angle of attack increases, note how lift and drag forces increase. Both lift and drag forces increase up to about 19 degrees, which represents the stalling angle. Beyond this, there is considerable turbulence. As a consequence, there is much less lift, whereas there is a decided increase in the drag. The changes in lift and drag forces with angle of attack are shown here graphically. First at 0 degrees angle, then at 5 degrees, next at 10 degrees, then at 15, and finally at the stalling angle just under 20. Beyond this stalling angle, note the sharp drop in lift and the almost vertical rise of the drag force line. The airplane pilot can change the forces acting on various parts of the plane by moving the ailerons which lie along the rear edge of the wings, or the elevators on either side of the rudder, or by moving the rudder itself. When the airplane is in steady and level flight, all the forces acting upon it must be in balance. For example, in this plane weighing 1,000 pounds, the resultant lift must equal 1,050 pounds because, due to the downwash of air, there is actually a negative lift of 50 pounds on the tail. The forward thrust of 200 pounds must equal a total drag of 200 pounds, which is made up of 100 pounds wing drag, 75 pounds fuselage drag, and a drag of 25 pounds on the tail. We can regard the weight of the plane as acting at one point called the center of gravity, and the motions of the plane as motion of this center of gravity and rotations about 3 mutually perpendicular axes through the center of gravity: a vertical axis, a lateral axis, and a longitudinal axis. These axes must be considered as being fixed to the plane and not to the earth. Rotations about these axes are called roll, pitch, and yaw. Roll is rotation about the longitudinal axis. This plane is rolling. Pitch is rotation about the lateral axis. This plane is pitching. Yaw is rotation about the vertical axis. This plane is yawing. To make the ship roll, the ailerons are moved by pressure on wheel or stick. A raised aileron decreases the lift on a wing. A lowered aileron increases lift. By continually changing the position of ailerons and consequently varying the lift force on right and left wings, the ship is made to roll. To control the plane about the lateral axis, the elevators are moved. Pressing forward causes the elevators to move so as to reduce the negative lift force on the tail surface, thus producing a forward rotation or pitch about the lateral axis. To produce yaw, the rudder is displaced, producing a force at the tail, which causes the plane to rotate about the vertical axis. It controls the heading of the plane, not primarily its direction of flight. To turn, it is necessary to change the flight path. Rolling or banking with the ailerons inclines the lift force producing an inward force which pulls the plane around. This with the yaw resulting from rudder action. However, if rudder and ailerons are used in a turn, the vertical part of the lift becomes less than weight and the plane loses altitude. Necessary to increase the lift perpendicular. In order to start a normal, it is necessary to apply elevators as well as rudder and ailerons. Once in the turn, rudder and ailerons are returned to neutral. Rudder and ailerons are applied, and on recovery, application of the laws of force to the movements of an inanimate body in the flight of the airplane of its pilot.
Hold on. Yeah, that print was beat to hell. Sometimes it happens. Let's see. So behind me, I have, on the film scanner, I have a film set up. It's called The Smile. And I haven't seen this, so I'm not sure what this is. Let's watch. Enjoy. That's novel. All right, let's watch Booker T. Washington instead, until I figured this out.
When Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he did not free them from poverty and fear. The major portion of that job, the constructive half of emancipation, fell into the hands of Booker T. Washington, who was born a slave in Virginia around 1856.
You got more in your share, Booker?
No, Sparrow just look like more. Man, this is good.
Massa Burr's a good man. He's got more trouble than he deserves. What with Massa Will dead in the war and all the others hurt bad.
Just the same, the Yankees whooping the South.
Hush your mouth. You want to get in more trouble?
No, ma'am. But I hear tell we supposed to be free right now. Lingham done free us.
Soon, son. Soon we be free. I praise to God every day and every night we soon be free. Hear me, Lord. You got to free me and my family. And you got to watch over Massa Burris and his family, too.
What means free?
Means we don't belong to nobody. Free means like white folks. Free to go and come as we want. And free to work and loaf when we want. What's wrong now?
How we get molasses when we're free?
We get all we want. Gallons and gallons of it. And more than that, we gets to draw free breath. And we gets to stay together. No one can sell us apart. And maybe even we gets to go to school like a white man and gets an education. That's what I want you to do, Booker.
One day in 1865, emancipation reached the Burroughs plantation, and a new era began in Booker's family. Like many newly freed slaves, they had to taste and test their freedom. The family moved to West Virginia, and Booker was put to work in a salt mine at the age of 9 by his father. But Booker's mother had different ideas, and schooling soon became the central interest in his life.
Can't hardly stand it. Just work, work, work. Job, no good pay, no good nothing. There's a place over in Virginia, Hampton they call it, where I hear tell you can get a real education. What you gonna do with it when you get it? Politics or preaching? I don't know. My mammy says education is the key to the future. The way to open the door to better things. Oh, man, what would you do with the key? The door's closed and locked and bolted and nailed shut to you. You just a black boy. Ain't no key to open that door to you or any of us. It's a white man's world, Booker.
Well, I'll get somewhere in spite of what you say. I'm going to that college over in Virginia, and I'm going to get an education.
Yes.
I come here to Hampton for schooling, ma'am.
What is your name?
Booker T. Washington, ma'am. I got to get schooling.
Yes, I know. Everyone has to get schooling.
Oh. A new applicant, Miss Mackey? And a dirty one, too.
But I traveled a hard road to get here, sir. I ain't slept none indoors. Been unloading pig iron. I got to get schooling, sir. I'm clean, if I can be.
You're clean, eh? All right, Washington. You can clean up that room in there. And if you do a good job, we'll consider you.
Ma'am, after I get through in there, you're going to be able to eat off the floor. It'll be so clean.
I suppose we'll have to find someone to defray his tuition. We can't turn away anyone as eager as he is.
I guess not, General Armstrong.
Oh, and make sure, if the room is clean, that he takes some lessons from Miss Lord in diction. I've seldom heard such English.
Yes, sir.
For several years, he studied hard, working for his board. After graduating from Hampton as class valedictorian, Booker T. Washington returned to Malden, West Virginia, and began to teach his people there. He received a letter from General Armstrong, asking him to return to Hampton to teach.
Good evening, General Armstrong.
Oh, good evening, Booker. How is it you're so late?
Well, the students press me to extend the class every night. They're so eager to learn, it's a pleasure to be able to help.
I'm glad you like teaching, Booker.
Oh, I believe it's the route to the second emancipation. The real freedom from the slavery of ignorance and superstition.
I received a letter the other day, and I've given it a good deal of thought. That's why I said I'm glad you like teaching. There's a job in Alabama that I've taken the liberty of recommending you for. A teaching job.
Oh, yes, sir?
The Alabama legislature passed an appropriation of $2,000 a year to pay salaries of teachers for a school for Negroes at Tuskegee. That was February 12th, 1881, and they still haven't anyone to take over the job.
But, sir, that's in the heart of the Black Belt. What chance would I have there?
Oh, I know they want a white man, but one has already turned down the job. That's why I sent in your name. You'll probably be acceptable, and I know you're a fighter, Booker. You'll do the job if it's possible to do.
Thank you, sir. I'll certainly give it a try if I get the chance.
Good. I knew you would. But remember one thing, Booker. If you fail, it'll be what everybody except you and me will expect. If you succeed, though, then, Booker, you'll really have taken a big step toward your second emancipation.
With my training here, General Armstrong, and with God's help, I might do a creditable job.
He went to Tuskegee, then traveled around Alabama, finding what the real educational needs were. He set up his first classes in a broken-down church and taught them himself under less than ideal conditions. It soon came to his attention that an old plantation near the town was for sale, and he borrowed the money to buy it.
Mrs. Jones to see you, Mr. Washington.
What does she want, Miss Davidson?
Well, it seems that her son has not been learning the proper things at Tuskegee, and he's being maltreated.
Oh, won't they ever learn that the one way for the Negro to become integrated in the South is to learn a skill that the community needs? I'll be happy to see her, Miss Davidson. Please ask her to come in.
She's irate, liable to be unpleasant.
Well, we're used to that by now, aren't we? I'm beginning to think that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had an easy time in Nebuchadnezzar's fiery furnace compared with us.
Oh, well, Mr. Washington, I would say it's more a case of reversing a part of the Bible and having the lion thrown to the Christians.
You ain't gonna be laughing so hard when I tell you what I come to tell you. I'm taking my boy out of this year's school Ain't nothing gonna stop me. I didn't send my boy here to sleep in an old slave shack and learn nothing.
I don't know what you've heard, Mrs. Jones, but apparently you...
I know what I see, Professor. All you teaching my boy is how to brush his teeth and sleep in a bed with sheets and brickmaking and carpenting and stuff like that. I want him to learn something so he can go to preaching.
But, Mrs. Jones, we try here to teach our students something useful, something they can use when they go out.
Ain't only me bothering you. Hardly a preacher in Alabama says you're doing any good here. They says you're Antichrist and again the church. I don't want my boy learning heathenism. I want him to learn something so he won't have to work like white men.
But, Mrs. Jones...
I didn't send my son here to find out how to work. The good Lord knows he's bound to find that out. No, sir. I'm taking him home this very day.
Don't you think you'd better reconsider, Mrs. Jones? We have a long waiting list, you know. And if your son leaves now, he might not be able to get back when he wants to.
You got a waiting list?
Yes, many people want their children to come here. Why don't you talk to your son? Perhaps listen to him if he tries to explain what we're doing here.
I'll do that. But if he says what I think he's going to say, I'm taking him home fast.
Here's a letter you should see, Mr. Washington. It's from a white group here in the state, threatening to run us out.
Well, I guess I'll have to try and arrange a meeting with them and try to tell them what we're doing here. Your letter, gentlemen, gives me to understand that there's still some doubt about what we're trying to do at Tuskegee.
We don't know what you're trying to do. All we know is what you're liable to do.
And we're going to stop you.
Gentlemen, for the sake of the South, I hope you don't succeed.
Now, don't hogwash us, Washington. We know what's going on. You're teaching them blacks to read and write. Why, it's getting so they won't do an honest day's work anymore.
You've been misinformed, sir. Our students learn to read and write, but they're taught also to use their knowledge in some useful trade.
You're just teaching them to get uppity.
Our real job here is to teach our students to become useful and productive members of the communities in which they live, to contribute their share or more to the good of the community.
You're just teaching them to be dissatisfied.
I'm not teaching dissatisfaction, sir. I'm trying to turn dissatisfaction into constructive effort.
Washington, we don't believe you.
Then, please, come to Tuskegee. All we ask is a close investigation.
In the summer of 1882, Booker T. Washington married Fanny Smith. They worked together, building up Tuskegee against terrific opposition. 2 years after their marriage, Mrs. Washington died, leaving Booker to face life with their baby daughter. But occasionally bright spots came along to lighten his burden.
He's trying to make better men's and better women's for the colored race. Now, I ain't got no money, but I want you to take these 6 eggs that I've been saving up, and I want you to put these 6 eggs in the education of these boys and girls.
Thank
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's just amazing, Mr. Washington, how much support you have for the school. Why, its fame is spreading far and wide, north and south.
Yes, we're beginning to make some headway. But it's slow, Olivia. Dreadfully slow.
You're a born fighter, Mr. Washington. If you had it too easy, you'd never get there.
Sometimes I think it's hopeless.
No, it's not. The one method the whites never tried during the days of slavery was leadership. And the Negro can be led by the proper leader. If he's led in the right direction, he'll come out on the right road.
Washington carried on his work despite a private life of tragedy. After his first wife died, he married Olivia Davidson. But she, too, was cut off in her prime, leaving 2 more children. 4 years after her death, Washington married again, this time to Margaret Murray. But one of the few close and constant bonds of affection in Washington's life was with General Armstrong.
Are you going to accept, Booker?
What?
Are you going to accept the invitation?
I don't know. It would be dangerous to talk to a mixed crowd in the South. At least it would be dangerous for me. And there'll be a large crowd at the opening of the Atlanta Exposition.
How do you mean, dangerous?
Well, Part of the white people will be there out of curiosity, and part will be there waiting for me to get uppity. And the colored people will be there to see me get revenge for some of the wrongs they've suffered.
And some of them will be there to hear what you have to say, knowing that it'll be valuable and worthwhile, and will contribute to racial understanding and goodwill.
It's a hard thing. I wouldn't know what to say.
Nonsense. You're a good speaker. You have a lot to say. Tell them how you, a Negro, feel about the race question and the question of the South's future. That's what they invited you to speak for. They want to hear what you have to say.
I don't know. I don't know. If you were a Negro, General Armstrong, what would you do?
I'd accept, and I'd tell them what you've been telling them for years, and make them understand in plain and simple language that the Negro and the white man can't get along without each other in the South.
Nearly 16 millions of hands will aid the white man in pulling the load upward, or they'll pull against you the load downward. Our race shall constitute 1/3 and more of the ignorance and crime of the South, or 1/3 its intelligence and progress. We shall contribute 1/3 to the business and industrial prosperity of the South, or we shall prove a veritable body of death, stagnating, depressing, and retarding every effort to advance the body politic. This coupled with our material prosperity will bring into our beloved South a new heaven and a new earth. Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thank you.
Send a telegram to the New York papers. Quote, I do not exaggerate when I say that Professor Booker T. Washington's address here today was one of the most notable speeches, both as to character and as to the warmth of its reception, ever delivered to a Southern audience. The address was a revelation. The whole speech is a platform upon which blacks and whites can stand with full justice to each other.
With the Atlanta speech, Booker T. Washington leaped into national prominence. He became the acknowledged spokesman for the Negro and told the Negro's story in the highest places, even in the White House.
No, President Roosevelt. The most qualified men to administer justice and act as federal officers in the South are Southerners. They understand the problems. Judge Kyle, for instance, is a able and worthy man.
So you told me in your letter. Now then, Mr. Washington, don't you think it's about time that a few colored men were appointed to responsible positions in the South?
I believe, Mr. President, that appointments should be made on the basis of character and ability, and not on the basis of color. And I know, sir, that you agree with me. But to answer your question, sir, I would advise no.
Well, why not?
Well, there are 2 or 3 reasons, sir. In the first place, to do an effective job, an administrator must have the cooperation of his neighbors and his fellow workers. And the South isn't quite ready for this. It will be in time, however. And in the second place, to appoint Negroes to office in the South while failing to appoint Negroes to office in the North would be looked upon by Southern whites as vindictive. And in the third place...
All right, Mr. Washington, all right. Well, good heavens, it's late, and we've much to discuss. You'll stay to dinner with the family, won't you?
Oh, I'd be delighted, sir.
Bully, come along. We've just enough time.
Booker T. Washington worked hard all his life. He was recompensed for his labor in many ways, in being the first Negro to receive an honorary degree from Harvard, in watching his beloved Tuskegee grow. The year 1915 brought death to Booker T. Washington, but death will never come to his work, for he lifted the veil of ignorance from the eyes of his fellows. Earnest, inspired, modest, self-controlled, and unsparing of his great wisdom and sense, Booker T. Washington has been deservedly called the first great American leader of his race.
So Emerson Films made several of these kind of biopics, biographies of noted people of American history. And so this one was, Booker T. Washington. And Emerson was acquired by Encyclopedia Britannica. They bought them, and they bought Irby Films about the same time, and kind of fleshed out and started creating this massive film library that they capitalized on, and then started making more films. It does not feature our good friend James Brill, but there was a dynamic narrator that I think is in all of these. All right, we're going to try the scanner again. The Smile. Enjoy.
For 50 years in the same monastery as the little Wang, there had dwelt an old monk, Yu Narada, who progressed upon the road to wisdom and upon the way to tranquility and peace.
I am the master of no one. I am the servant of no one. He who has riches grieves for his riches. He who has buffaloes grieves for his buffaloes. He who has sons grieves for his sons. But he who has wisdom rejoices in peace.
All the monks, and little Aung as well, depend on charity for their daily rice. Every day, Aung and Unarada visit a temple which lies some miles away from their monastery.
For the Buddha has said, he who desires nothing is at peace. He who possesses nothing is at peace. He who lives as a beggar is at peace. He who brightens his heart with love for every creature who breathes is at peace. Never an insect will sting, never a snake will bite. Give to the beasts who have no legs the love of your heart. Give to the beasts who have 2 legs the love of your heart. Give to the beasts who have 4 legs the love of your heart. Give to all creatures who live, to the plants and to the stones, to the fire and to the air, the love of your heart. And you will possess the knowledge which has no name.
What a way to have a Thursday lunch. That was great. I love films that are these just barely narratives of traveling across the landscape and taking in whatever. And then, there's a bigger picture here. According to one of the film databases I have, the description or synopsis of this film is the story of the smile of a Burmese child as he discovers the deep meanings hidden beneath appearances while he makes his way along the road to the great golden pagoda of Rangoon. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, soundtrack was wonderful. The flute, not so much, but the rest of it, the percussion, big fan. So that took place in what is now Myanmar, and yeah, little travelogue. We get to see interesting places and interesting things, and I appreciate you guys watching along with us. If you like what you saw, you could always hit the thumbs up or the like. That's an easy, quick cheap way to support us. Another way is to watch other videos on our channel. There's advertising on there. We try to make it as unannoying as possible. Advertising is annoying. We know it is. Unless it's from the 70s, and then we'd love it. But all those put pennies in our piggy banks, our YouTube piggy banks that we spend on frivolous things like Hello Kitty birthday candles or outhouse gags. These are fart and poop related gags. Razor, Windsweet, dog doo-doo. That's not true. We didn't spend money on that. That was something from long ago. But anyways, another way you can support us is going to ko-fi.com/avgeeks, and also to go to patreon.com/avgeeks, or hit the super thanks button and donate $1 or $2 there. That's another way to help support us. We have some big things in the works that, as we get closer, I might start talking about them. But right now, just know that we're thinking about the future of AV Geeks and what we're going to do and how we're going to keep these films safe and continue showing them to you. But we couldn't have done this without you. You guys are great and important. So thank you again for tuning in. We will be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Holy cow. Please understand that I heart films, and I will hold them aloft whenever I can. But we will see you next week. I'm sorry, not next week. Tomorrow. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye.